Hello, this is the Vanilla JavaScript podcast. I'm Chris Ferdinandi. Thanks so much for joining me. Today, I'm talking about the rise of JavaScript compilers and micro libraries. For the last few years, big client-side libraries, often called frameworks, even though technically they're not, have completely dominated the modern web. I've spoken about and written about this countless times, but all of this client-side JavaScript is creating a web that's slow and fragile and broken and shitty, and I absolutely hate it, which is why I'm utterly delighted by a recent and growing trend I'm starting to see: the rise of JS compilers and micro libraries. The trend, as far as I can tell, started with Preact. Preact is a 3 kilobyte alternative to React that uses the same API with way less code and a few less features. Preact isn't just smaller than React. It's about 4 times faster to render on a state update than React is too. My friend Jeremy Wagner wrote an article about this for CSS Tricks that I will link to down in the show notes, where he actually did some comparisons between React, Preact, and vanilla JavaScript. And of course, vanilla JS was the fastest of the bunch, but Preact was substantially faster than React. It's just so much better for performance. And Jason Miller, the guy who built it, claims a render engine update that he's working on results in optimizations that are up to 3 times faster than Preact's current renderer as well, and even faster than the way some people would generally handwrite vanilla JavaScript. And that is absolutely awesome. There's also Alpine JS, inspired by Vue. It's gotten a bit heavier in the last year, weighing in at 12 kilobytes, but I had inspired Evan You, the guy who made Vue, to create Petite Vue, a 5.5 kilobyte subset of Vue that's optimized for progressive enhancement, to quote Evan directly. The most recent entry I've seen is Solid.js, another reactive state-based micro library that claims to be nearly as fast as Vanilla.js in render performance, with a similar API to libraries like React and Preact. If you need state-based UI, it's really hard to argue that React would be a better choice than Preact or an other micro library today. They're smaller, they load faster, and they actually render faster too. But there's another trend happening that I think is even more exciting: JavaScript compilers. A few years ago, Rich Harris realized that while state-based reactivity can be a good thing, handling it all with a mountain of client-side JavaScript is not, and I actually have a link in the show notes to the talk he gave on this topic. Svelte, Rich's creation, is a JavaScript compiler. It lets you create reactive state-based components, just like you would with Vue or React. But instead of shipping them as is to the browser, you run a compiler that spits out plain old HTML and some vanilla JS that does the same kind of manual DOM manipulation you would if you weren't using a framework. In my opinion, this gives you the best of both worlds. You can write state-based UI if that's your thing, but you can serve old school DOM manipulation to the end user for a faster experience. Rich also recently started working on SvelteKit, an extension to Svelte that adds routing. Building on Rich's idea, Astro is a new compiler that works the same way, but lets you pull in components from all of your favorite JavaScript libraries. So rather than having to use Svelte's specific way of composing UIs, you can pull in, let's say, a drop-down menu component that you love from React and a card component from Vue. And maybe you also have a Svelte file that you started working on, and you're not going to ship 2 libraries to the browser. That'd be absurd. Astro lets you take all of those, as well as some plain old JavaScript and HTML, and mash them all together, and then spit out predefined HTML, CSS, and vanilla JS. And of all the things that we've talked about on the show so far, Astro is probably the one I'm most excited about. It's definitely standing on the shoulders of giants, and I think it has the most potential to reduce the fragility and performance issues that modern web development has brought to the web. When I first wrote about this back over the summer, Astro was brand new. But this week, Jason Lengstorff from Netlify shared his experience working with Astro. And he wrote, quote, "I just ported a Next.js site to Astro used 90% of the same component code, and ended up with huge improvements. And what Jason found was that he managed to reduce the client-side JavaScript he was shipping by 90%. Like literally a tenth of the JavaScript hitting the front end. And this increased his page load time by 30%. Really just big wins all around, both in terms of resilience and performance. These tools, these compilers are starting to look more and more interesting every day. If you want to learn more about Astro, Cassidy Williams has a fantastic intro over on the Netlify blog, and I will make sure I link to that down in the show notes as well. At any rate, that's it for today. If you want to finally master JavaScript, head over to vanillajsguides.com and check out my pocket guides and video courses. As a listener of the show, you can take 30% off with the code podcast at checkout. See you next time. Cheers.